IGO's channel, coming at you with my deck profile for pure Kashtira that came in second place, first after Swiss from this past weekend. I was 5-0 going into top cut and then lost in the finals to this goober on Uvel. Deck was deck was really good. Like I said, undefeated in Swiss, and then was doing really well through top cut until sometimes you draw 2 hand traps and they can play through it. So before we get into the list, just wanted to shout a few people out. Shout out to my sponsor and team, RIW, Safe, Gary, Craig, and Ricardo. Shout out to the Booty Discord, Eva, Foxy, Ivy, everybody. Some of the Barbies for testing, Sal, Lucas, some others for helping with just like theory with the deck. Yeah, we'll get into it. So for cash cards, 3 Unicorn, 3 Fenrir, 3 Rise Heart, and 1 Scareclaw. Prep and Ogre are still bad. This format's too fast. Like, Ogre does nothing and Prep does nothing to advance your initial plays. Like, all of these cards net you advantage and compare with the other cash cards in the way the other ones can't. Like, I love playing Prep, but the format's just not friendly to it, so it's not worth playing. For hand traps, there's way too many of them. 3 Ash, 3 Shifter, 3 Droll, 3 Imperm, 2 Valor, and shout out Conrad for at 2 a.m. and Nats for Ghost Bell. This card was crazy. Anything that hits the graveyard, this format is wild. We opted for this over like Bestials or DD Crow, A, because it wouldn't conflict with Shifter, and B, because you don't want to put a monster on your board and then like prevent the rest of your cash names from being starters or like planets or things like that. You want as few of your hand traps to conflict as possible. When you're playing a deck kind of as slow as Kashtira, where a lot of your game plan is malleable depending on your matchup, you need to ensure that you can pivot and that you're slowing the game down to simplify the game state so you can capitalize once that game state is simplified. Droll does that when paired with other hand traps. Shifter does that by itself a lot of the times in certain matchups. So we figured just maxing out on the turn stoppers more often than not and just pairing with the good 1-for-1s is just going to give you an easier time into the majority of the metagame. And it was for the most part. And then the rest of the deck, 3 Red Soth, 3 Birth, 2 Theosis. Shout out to the guy in Austin who got me convinced on 2 Theosis. I don't remember his name, I wish I could, but you know who you are. This card at 2 is perfect. It doesn't do anything by itself. It's really good when paired with cash cards, but you don't want to see multiples in your opener, and you're going to use 1 to extend into a cash name and the second to banish off of Rise Heart to grab back something from your banish zone. So more than anything else, it's a utility card. Like, you want to see Birth and Planet or like Birth plus a hand trap plus a cash name way more than multiple Theosis. And then 3 Prosperity. Please just ban this card, I'm begging you. 2 Tactics. I upped this from my my YCS list. This card was crazy all day. Hand Knowledge is insane in this format, and just taking monsters is unbelievable. And then Terraforming, just to find more copies of Planet to get started. Cash has a consistency problem, so you want to make sure you're trying to address it. So that's 40 cards in main deck. Moving to the extra deck, we played 1 Shangri-Era. You don't need 2. 2 is cope. 1 is fine. You make this when you literally can't make anything else, or if you want to like prioritize having the pop off of Wraithsoth, which isn't better than a lot of the boards you're trying to make against particular matchups. Abyss Dweller and Baguska, you're coping if you don't play these cards. These were insane all day. Abyss Dweller just clears Ubel. Baguska is like your easiest answer for blind 10. It made me go first and with 10 pi. You can just like make these cards blind and have an edge up on matchups where your 1-for-1 cash cards just trade better. 1 Draco Sack, it's for skill drain, never came up. 1 Big Eye, didn't make it, but it's Big Eye, it's Change of Heart, it's really good. 1 Gradiel. This card's insane. I put it back in because it's crazy into Ubel. Being able to take like Engravers or take Yamas out of the graveyard is really good. And also just like random rogue decks, like Dinosaur, for example, will have like things engraved that you want to steal. Like I've done that before. I've taken Misks out of grave.
Like I know, like what is it? I'm a lost your team thing.
It's also really good into branded, and like it was Water Tower, so I figured there'd be like 3 branded players, and then there were not a single branded player showed up for like the first Water Tower tournament ever,
that was good.
Which was crazy.
I don't want to get puffed on.
Oh my god! And then
a shit ton of 10 pilots.
Yeah.
Healthy.
I think there was like 6.
I think it was like 5 or 6. It was.
It was most
crazy.
represented.
It was crazy. Yeah. 1 Dark Armed and 1 Blaze. A lot of people opt for 2 Dark Armed. Blaze is quietly really good because it's a non-targeting pop as opposed to Dark Armed. It can attack after you do the pop, which means it's better for just pushing for damage. And then I'll show the card later on in the extra deck, but it's also a recursive body, meaning if you're struggling to put damage on board after simplifying the game state the way Kashtira wants to, you can really easily just bring this back and push, which is really, really cool.
And then can you explain what this does, just for people who don't know?
Oh, yeah. So it's Blaze, Supreme Ruler of all dragons. So it's 3 effects. So you make it just generically with 2 level 7s. Once per turn, you can detach a material from this card. You destroy 2 cards, one on your opponent's side of the field, and then one either in your hand or on your field, non-targeting. And then if it's only 2 effects, my bad. But and then if this card's in the graveyard, you can banish 2 fire monsters or dragon monsters from your graveyard hand or graveyard to summon it. And then if it leaves the field, it goes back to the extra deck. So it's basically just the fire dragon ruler, but in XYZ form. It's really good. I made it once to do a non-targeting pop when it would have been less optimal to go for Dark Armed. I think it's worth playing. I think it's a really cool card. 1 Red Eyes Flare. Time didn't matter this time around. I didn't end up in like a situation where I was just putting them on like 500 and making this, but it's a really good card. You still have to play it. 1 Typhon. This card's gotten worse over the course of the format, but I just like having access to it because you use the cash cards to just like break a board, and then like your last action is slapping this down, then just like pushing for big damage. Zeus, because it's a rank 7 package and you have all these different cards that access Zeus. And then the crazy package that I absolutely have fallen in love with since putting it in is Utopic Future and UDF. Jungwon Lee got me interested in testing this after YCS Indy, and ever since I put this card in, this card is unbelievable. So people think that this is like a massive investment. You can make this card when you go second off of just a unicorn by using Rise Heart to banish a Scareclaw and then searching for Theosis. So before committing your normal summon and before committing your birth summon, you can slap down a monster negate that's also a change of heart. And then if you're in a simplified game state and you haven't burned through every one of your Theosis just yet, you can really easily just set up a Utopic Draco Future, activate a birth, and summon back a Fenrir. And it's really hard for 1 to 2 cards to play through that. This won me my round 2 against Tenpai and my round 5 against Fiendsmith Snakes. This card is really, really good. I think it's really slept on in this deck. And then SP because of the standard like opening rank 4 plus SP combo, and then Shengying. Went back to this. The damage effect comes up a lot, just being a really big body to push over like 3k bodies. And then going second, if you have like Rise Hearts or like Scareclaw in hand or like a Pot of Prosperity even, you can just use this as a board breaker to like slowly pick the opponent's like field apart. So yeah, that's the extra deck. Shout out Mark Nieto for the Weezer token, always. And then the side deck. 3 Perulia. This card is broken. I think this card's insane. I think the Molt Charmies are awesome. In this deck, just playing like 16 hand traps and tactics, you just get to see the good cards. 3 Sphere Mode. This card didn't come up all day until I drew it in my top 4 match against Ubel off of Perulia, and I Sphere Moded a Desiree, a Caesar, and a Phantom, and the Ubel player just couldn't recover from it. This is the only board breaker that just effectively trades with monsters without like leaving things on board. Like Droplet will leave monsters on board, Dark Ruler leaves monsters on board. There are so many ways in Kashtira with like Birth and Rise Heart and Scareclaw to just never have to commit your normal summon and use this to like clear a giant board and go wide. I really, really like it. 2 Cosmic and 1 Feather Duster. I like having Duster just to hit multiple pieces of back row. I mean, I was a little afraid that people would play Rogue, and so you just want to be able to like hit a larger amount of back row at times. But I think Cosmic in some form is mandatory just because people are still playing Anti-Spell and Reactive Floodgates, and you want a card that reacts to it as opposed to like playing Lightning Storm and being passive to like an Anti-Spell or a larger Floodgate. And then in 6 going first cards, 3 Skill Drain. This card is unfun and boring and broken, but Tenpai can't beat it. Ubel has a really hard time into it. It cooks Rogue. It's just a really good card this format. I've been finding ways with like Wraithsoth and Shangri-Ira and like other rank 7s in the deck to be able to like contest Flame Burges through Skill Drain, which is like one thing I struggled with back at the YCS. I'm gonna keep this in until they do something to Snake Eye or like the more toxic decks in the room to like warrant the change. And then the MVP of the side deck by and far was Judgment. This card is unreal in Kashtira. People are like flip-flopping back and forth right now in the format between playing hand traps and playing breakers. Like a lot of people are like main decking 15 hand traps and siding 3 breakers, or like main decking all breakers and siding into like power hand traps. And so Kashtira loses to Evenly, it loses to Book of Eclipse, it loses to like Droplet sometimes, depending on like what boards you make. And so you want the card that immediately answers the board breakers, because if it doesn't have to answer a board breaker, it's answering a summon, and that's really important. In my top 4, what won me the match ultimately was, after simplifying the board state, he tried to go for the second or third U-Bell in his Phantom of U-Bell in his extra, and I Judgmented the summon and he couldn't recover from it. The card is just unreal. It's really, really strong. Yeah, that's the deck. It's pure Kashtira. Don't play Heat Soul. Heat Soul is garbage. You lose to Nib, you lose to Droll, you lose to every like major hand trap being played in the game. You lose to Droplet, you lose to everything. Like this deck is a toolbox. Like it needs to be played as a toolbox. Yeah, I got nothing else to say on that. My matchups were round 1, I played against Ancient Gear. I 2-0'd it. My round 2, I played against Tenpai. I won 2-1, which was really off the back of UDF. My round 3, I played against U-Bell. I won 2-1. My round 4, I played the Mirror, and I won 2-1. And then round 5, yeah, shout out to Phil, my guy. I love Phil. And then round 5, shout out German. I played Fiendsmith Snake Eye, and the winner of the match was Riseheart banishing his Oak from his main deck, because that's not fair. So yeah, undefeated in Swiss, and then I won my top 8 match against U-Bell. I won my top 4 match against U-Bell, and I lost my finals match to U-Bell. So all I'm hearing is we should ban Phantom.
Phantom, my beloved.
But yeah, no, deck was great. It's pure Kashtira. I love it. Please ban Shifter.